Could this be a push? Could this be a final push for a sign of things to come? Lynne Roberts, head coach, LA Sparks, planting seeds in the ground for Caitlin Clark to blossom and eventually put on a LA Sparks uniform. The talks were once hot.
For the better part of the last few years, the Los Angeles Sparks were the franchise everybody had quietly crossed off the map, dismissed as an afterthought in their own league. And yet right now, that same organization is mounting a genuine full-throttle campaign to pry Caitlin Clark out of Indiana. The person steering that campaign is Lynne Roberts, the Sparks head coach, who spent 9 years turning Utah into a college powerhouse before deciding the professional game was her next mountain to climb.
Caitlin Clark traded to LA. A nightmare situation for Indiana. Is this actually happening? Looking at the YouTube WNBA influencers, they are convinced that Caitlin Clark will be traded to the LA Sparks. The thought process here is that Adam Silva doesn't like what's going on in Indiana. Caitlin Clark is too big of a ticket for Indiana, a small market. So they're gonna move Clark out of there, move her to LA, and get a bigger, better TV contract next year. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen.
And to be clear, this is not gossip, and it is not some late-night fan theory cooked up on a message board. There are real names attached to a real story, and the volume around it keeps rising for one simple reason. Anyone who has watched what the WNBA has allowed Caitlin Clark to endure this season understands why the picture of her packing her bags for Los Angeles no longer reads like a wild fantasy. It is starting to feel like the natural ending to a saga that only keeps getting uglier.
Word on the street is Caitlin Clark is going to be traded soon. And if you follow the rabbit hole, it all sounds real. It all sounds on purpose. And it all makes sense. Caitlin Clark.
So let's break it all down. Let's examine the moves the Sparks are making. Let's look honestly at how Stephanie White's coaching choices appear from the outside. Let's confront what this league keeps permitting to happen to its single most valuable player, game after game after game. And let's ask the question people are finally saying out loud for the first time. Does Indiana even deserve to hold on to Caitlin Clark anymore?
If Caitlin goes to LA, what do you guys think? I mean, she'd be back with what, Cameron Brink? Kelsey Plum is over there. Kate Martin is there right now. They have some good players. I just don't know if Caitlin Clark is an LA girl. I mean, she's definitely Midwest, person. Will she fit in LA? I mean, with Cam and that team, I don't know. Maybe the spotlight will.
Lynne Roberts did not luck her way into a big market job as some first-year rookie. Across 9 seasons at Utah, she transformed that program into a regular NCAA tournament fixture and earned a reputation as one of the most respected builders in all of women's basketball. Los Angeles hired her to deliver something fans had stopped believing this franchise could offer: real competitiveness, and patience is clearly not part of her plan. From the moment she arrived in LA, Roberts has attacked every front at once. She signed Kate Martin, a player who built genuine battle-tested chemistry with Clark during their Iowa years. And by early July, the Sparks had converted Martin's development contract into a full-standard WNBA deal. She has kept stacking pieces around the roster. She has been open and unapologetic about her ambitions, and she has made it obvious that Los Angeles is constructing something serious. What Roberts wants is a star, not merely a good player, a genuine star, the kind who rewrites a franchise's entire financial equation overnight. And when you are the head coach of the Los Angeles Sparks studying the current Caitlin Clark situation, what stares back at you is an opening that arrives maybe once in a generation.
Well, man, if you haven't heard, Kate Money Martin, man, just got signed to a standard contract with the LA Sparks, man. And this was much deserved and needed because the WNBA needs Kate Martin on a team. And they had to make room to do this, so thank you to Nia Latson. But we talking about Kate Martin. We already know from Iowa with the face of the league, the baby goat, Caitlin Clark. Also, one of the people that have the top selling basketball jerseys in the WNBA and has had it since she came in. But she also has the skill to be on a team. So this is good. I'm pretty sure a lot of people is happy about this signing.
Now here is why this pursuit amounts to far more than wishful thinking. The Kate Martin signing was no accident. Martin was Clark's teammate at Iowa, present for every single chapter of that historic run. She is someone Clark trusts, someone who understood exactly how Clark operates before one professional practice ever took place. Nobody goes out and signs Kate Martin in the middle of a WNBA season and then pretends they are not keeping one eye trained on Clark's future. That is a deliberate organizational signal. You are assembling a roster Clark could walk into and feel instantly at home in. You are stripping away friction. You are positioning pieces on the board long before any real negotiation ever opens. No, Roberts has not stepped up to a podium and declared that Los Angeles is coming for Caitlin Clark, because that is simply not how this business works. But the moves are telling the story, the words have not spoken yet, and anybody following this franchise closely can see precisely what the project looks like.
I'm pissed. After tonight's game, I'm pissed, and I'm clearly not alone in my sentiments, but the league has a serious officiating issue, and the fact that the way that they treat their generational talent is truly disgusting. The calls tonight were insane, or the no calls tonight were insane.
Before you can grasp why the Sparks want her this badly, you need to understand exactly what Caitlin Clark is producing right now in 2026. She is averaging a career-best 21.2 points per game across 17 appearances this season. She has earned another All-Star selection, her third in 3 years. The Fever entered this stretch sitting at 11-8. At just 24 years old, in only her third professional campaign, she is performing at a level that places her in company almost no guard in the entire history of women's basketball has ever kept. She is also the most watched player women's professional basketball has ever known. The Fever and Liberty matchup on June 6 pulled an average of 2.557 million viewers on CBS, the biggest WNBA audience on any network all season long, and the second largest audience for any women's basketball game on any network since the year 2000. Start with the Portland Fire game on May 31st. Stephanie White pulled Clark in the first quarter, and Indiana went on to fall 100-84, a 16-point beatdown. Then, during a second quarter timeout, the broadcast cameras caught Clark and White in what most viewers could only read as a heated confrontation. Clark looked visibly frustrated. White was pressing her point. The clip went viral within minutes because the entire country suddenly had front row seats to a head coach and her franchise cornerstone clearly not operating from the same page. When reporters pressed White about that early substitution, her answer never quite landed. She pointed to Alia Boston's minutes restriction and insisted Clark's removal was part of the plan. But benching your best player, your most dangerous offensive weapon, in the opening quarter of a game that spiraled into a 16-point blowout loss is exactly the kind of decision that demands a far cleaner explanation than the one offered. Afterward, both Clark and White came out and insisted nothing was wrong. They labeled it competitive fire. They called it coaching. Here is the problem though. When you and your coach are visibly arguing on national television in the middle of a timeout, announcing that there is no issue does not make the moment disappear. The footage exists, millions of people watched it, and the question it planted has never gone away. Is Stephanie White genuinely putting Caitlin Clark in the best position to succeed?
You have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had 2 cheap shots right there that weren't called. And I just say again, absolutely unacceptable.
Steph, do you think that the league needs to look into how Caitlin Clark is defended or how she's officiated going forward?
I mean, we spent all offseason looking at officiating. All offseason. And I still say the one thing that we keep asking for is consistency. She is not called the same way everybody else is called.
And this goes far beyond a single game. Before the latest incident, Clark had already been listed as probable for 13 separate games this season because of a lingering back concern. 13 games, a 24-year-old who should be enjoying the strongest physical years of her entire career, and her team has spent more than half the season navigating injury clouds around her. Then came June 24, fever against Mercury. During a scramble for a loose ball, Alyssa Thomas drove a closed fist straight into Clark's throat. Thomas rose to her feet, stared down at her, and stepped right over her. The officials caught none of it. Play simply continued. After the game, White called the missed calls egregious, saying Clark had absorbed 2 uncalled cheap shots in a single professional basketball game, while the referees somehow found reason to review Clark for possibly striking a defender rather than addressing what had been done to her. The league eventually handed Thomas a suspension. One game for a closed fist blow to the throat, and Clark sat out the next 2 contests with a back injury aggravated in that very same matchup.
It's really always intense though. Like I feel like, yes, just like you said about basketball, like it was a flagrant 2, it was a flagrant 2. Like that should have never been done. Like you don't put your hand in someone's throat and like damn near kick them on the floor. Like it's a basketball game. Like what are we doing? Like, and so obviously that was the right call. And as for death threats, like it's so.
I've been on the other side of those, Aaliyah. Like
Yeah.
I've been on the side of some players' rough play. So if there's anybody that could probably speak about this and being roughed up and being like disrespected and whatever, it's probably me. But in terms of taking it farther than that, it's just like, what are we?
Now here is where this story stops being ordinary basketball drama and becomes something far more serious. Singerette Sohi at The Ringer has reportedly argued flatly that the deck is stacked against Clark, that players resent her, that referees will not shield her, and that league leadership has been reluctant to acknowledge obvious mistreatment. That is not some anonymous account on Twitter. That is a credentialed journalist covering the WNBA for one of the most respected sports publications in the country. Then a group of 11 Republican lawmakers led by U.S. Representative August Pfluger of Texas sent a formal letter to WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert on July 8 demanding accountability for what they described as multiple attacks against Clark. They labeled her the face of the league. They cited hip-checking, eye-poking, and the throat incident as evidence of unnecessary physical hostility and violence. They raised the possibility of Justice Department involvement if the conduct rises to the level of civil rights violations, and they gave Engelbert until July 24 to respond. That is the United States Congress writing to a league commissioner about one single player, about whether she is being protected. Consider how far a story has to travel before it ever lands there.
I thought you're young, wonderful basketball player,
The best.
Caitlin. I thought that she was treated rather rough, if you want to know the truth. That was a much different kind of an event. That was a pretty bad event.
Facts.
But in this case, he didn't do anything
And
wrong.
do you know how bad the WNBA has to be doing when our president has to stop his busy schedule to talk about the WNBA? What? Good thing it was Caitlin, because if it wasn't for Caitlin, he would have had no reason to speak about the WNBA. That's just facts.
And then, right in the thick of all this chaos, somebody decided to say the quiet part at full volume. A piece published by Yahoo Sports in late June carried the argument that the WNBA would actually be better off without Caitlin Clark. The logic ran like this. Clark has already served her purpose. She helped the players win chartered flights. She fueled the push for the new CBA. She sent the ratings soaring. So now the argument concluded, the league should learn to stand on its own 2 feet without leaning on one player's popularity. That ranks among the wildest takes ever committed to sports analysis. The notion that a league somehow improves by shedding its most watched, highest drawing athlete because she has simply been useful enough already.
Being sabotaged by this trash ass head coach, this trash ass organization. Trade her already. Just trade her. This is garbage, bro. I'm sick of watching this stuff. She was sabotaged today. The most she played was 3 minutes and 10 seconds at one time. That is sabotage. It's malpractice. There was no point in her even playing today if this is the plan. I'm sick of it. Sick of
Now for the contract reality, because this piece matters enormously. Before this campaign even tipped off, the Indiana Fever exercised their team option on Clark's deal for the 2027 season, locking her in at a salary of $597,596 for that year. Once 2027 concludes, she becomes a restricted free agent. Restricted free agency means Indiana holds the right to match any offer another franchise puts on the table, but it absolutely does not stop another franchise from making that offer. The Sparks understand that 2028 is when a genuine move becomes possible, and everything about their ambitions and their championship contention messaging reads as preparation for that exact conversation. Clark, for her part, has guarded her public words carefully. She is not complaining about the fever. She has not called out management. She has carried herself like a complete professional. But she is also a 24-year-old watching a league that has spent 3 years either failing to protect her or looking the other way while she gets targeted. And Los Angeles is quietly painting a portrait of what the alternative could look like.
So, first of all, I know what you guys are going to ask, and I did think it was a flagrant foul. And our reffing just needs to be better. And, it's tough. Obviously, the refs are in a really difficult spot. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world, in my opinion, is to make calls. All you do is get yelled at the whole time by everybody. You're never winning. So I think for us, as the league's just got to do better protecting our players in that regard. I don't really think that it was up for debate. Obviously, it wasn't called in real time. You go back and watch the clip, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of been a discussion for 3 years now, and I think we really need to do a better job protecting the people in this league. And, obviously I've been involved in a few of those plays, but there's been plenty others across the league that, haven't got called, go back and post game or whatever it is, teams submit clips, nothing really changes. So
when Clark returned to practice, she stood in front of the cameras and stated plainly that the league simply has to do better at protecting its players. She said the officiating needs to improve, and in the very same breath, she condemned the harassment being hurled at other WNBA players in the fallout. Think about that for a second. This is Caitlin Clark, sidelined by injury, and her public response is as measured and responsible as anyone could possibly ask for. Meanwhile, the league still cannot hold up its end of the bargain. She keeps showing up. She keeps pouring in 21 points a night. She keeps packing arenas and pushing television ratings to heights the WNBA had never even approached before she arrived. She came to win, and the fastest route to winning in the WNBA of 2026 runs directly through Caitlin Clark. Roberts knows it, the Sparks know it, and if the Indiana Fever and the WNBA cannot recognize that they are actively handing a competitor every reason to come knocking, they are going to learn that lesson the hard way. A franchise that treated her like an afterthought has no right to act surprised when somebody else starts treating her like a priority.